والسلام علي يوم ولدت ويوم أموت ويوم أبعث حيا.
I think we have something that was left from last week's discussion, was left unsorted. I can't remember the exact discussion. I know it was a hadith. What prompted the question though? No. Yes. What was the context though? Great. That's true. What led us to that law?
I think I asked the question.
Yes, I do remember that. We were having a discussion to do with that. But anyway, it's fine, inshallah. To that I said, yes, we are taking into account for our thoughts. Even though it's a very common belief that is there amongst Muslims, is that we are not really taking into account for our thoughts. We are only taking into account only for our actions. This common belief that is amongst Muslims goes back to a well-known hadith that says, إن الله تجاوز لي عن أمتي ما وسوست به صدورها ما لم تعمل به أو تتكلم. إن الله تجاوز لي عن أمتي ما وسوست به صدورها ما لم تعمل به أو تتكلم. This hadith in Bukhari as Muslim as well. But it gets misquoted often. The hadith is not talking about bad thoughts. The hadith, first of all, when we're dealing with any Islamic question, you first need to look at the Quran. What does the Quran have to say on bad thoughts? The Quran is very serious when it comes to those. لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وإن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به الله. Whether you reveal, whether you could see whatever you have in yourselves, in your souls, Allah will take you to account for it. That's a very obvious verse. One of the latest verses that were revealed over the Quran. Right? And other verses in the Quran, attend to this in the very same way. And actually the Quran takes another thing very seriously, that is su'ud dhann, having bad assumptions, evil thoughts. In the Quran, it's a very serious thing. Having bad assumptions about Allah, actually it's one of the kaba'ir, one of the major sins in Islam. That's why the Prophet ﷺ says, لا يموتن أحدكم إلا وهو يحسن الظن بالله. Let none of you die, having a bad thought about Allah. Also having bad thoughts about people. That's a very serious thing. اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. We'll come to this. Why does the Quran say إن بعض الظن إثم? But it says in the very same time, keep away from assuming too much or having too many assumptions. Inshallah, we'll have a linguistic discussion on that. But it's a very serious thing. So you can't really reconcile this with the hadith that says, if you understand this hadith in this way, it doesn't make much sense. The Quran takes this very seriously, whether having bad thoughts about Allah or having bad thoughts about people. And actually the Quran says, إن تبدوا ما في أنفسكم أو تخفوه يحاسبكم به. That Allah will take into account for that. And matters of the heart in the Quran are very, very, very serious here. And actually the Quran identifies people who do good things, who do bad things, or who do good things, hiding evil intentions, as what's the Quranic term for that? Munafiqun. So the primary problem with al-munafiqun is that it's with their thoughts, with the insights, with the intentions. So intentions, thoughts in the Quran are very serious. So that's the Quranic philosophy. So you can't, with one single hadith, cancel out a Quranic philosophy. And yet this hadith is often misquoted. And when it's cited, it's cited out of context. This hadith, that's another thing. The first point we're trying to emphasize here, whenever you have a question, try and look in the Quran first. What does it have to say in this? Not because the hadith is not important or something. No, the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is very important. But look at the first source first. Because it will always give you the first principles. In philosophy, there is something called first principles. First principles, in any subject, you have something called first principles. Those first principles establish the key rules of the game that you go back to whenever you have controversies, you have problems, you go back to the first principles. The Quran is a book of first principles. The Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was linked often to a context where the Prophet ﷺ was saying something in response to a question, was dealing with a specific person. So when he says something like that, he must have been dealing with a very specific case. And when we come to study hadith, the vast majority of hadiths, they don't give us a context. Some hadiths do. Right? But many hadiths don't. Think of the first hadith in Bukhari. The Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Deeds are nothing but intentions. All you have is Umar ibn Khattab narrating a very specific hadith, single statement. But he's quoting the Prophet's response to a specific situation. Where people were migrating from Mecca to Medina. Some of them have sincere intentions, others have other intentions. So it's within this context. Context definitely clarifies things. So some hadiths do give us a context, many hadiths don't. And yet the Prophet ﷺ was a human being who lived in a context. So whatever he says, apart from the Quran, he is often literally responding to a specific context, a specific situation, or explaining a Quranic verse, so to speak. Right? So that's why you have to go first to the Quran, because it establishes the first principles. And then you go to the Sunnah. With the Sunnah, you have this hadith. إن الله تجاوز لي عن أمتي ما وسوست به صدورها ما لم تعمل به أو تتكلم. Allah forgave the sins of my ummah for my sake. Allah forgave the whispers that they might have, the insinuations, the thoughts, the evil thoughts they might have in their hearts, as long as they don't act upon it or they don't speak of it. Right? That's what the hadith is saying. As long as you don't talk or you don't act upon it, you're fine. This hadith is not talking about evil thoughts. To begin with, the hadith is talking about thoughts that we might think these are very dangerous thoughts. I'll give you an example. And this is actually through other hadiths in the Sunnah. The Sunnah is an ocean, literally an ocean. And that's another danger. The Quran is just one book. With the Sunnah, you have Al-Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, Tirmidhi, An-Nisa'i, Ibn Majah, Al-Hakim, Al-Darimi. It's another world. So many people, how many people have studied all those books for them to know what this book has? And they all claim that they go back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you have read only one single book of those, then how dare you attribute something to the Prophet ﷺ on the basis of one single hadith, and you haven't even studied the full canon of the Prophet ﷺ of things attributed to him. Other hadiths actually explain this. There's a hadith, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu narrates, he says, جاء ناس من أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. This is in Sahih Muslim. A group of people came to the Prophet ﷺ and they said, Ya Rasulullah, إن أنفسنا تحدثنا بأشياء لأن نخر من السماء أحب إلينا من أن ننطق بها. Our souls, our own selves, they whisper things, thoughts to us. For us to fall from the sky, we would rather fall from the sky than raise those questions. Because we wouldn't dare to raise those questions, because these are very serious ones. And what they are referring to is questions to do with God Himself. If you ask me, Allah has created this, Allah has created that, the next question would be, who created Allah? Right? Yeah, thoughts like these. Where is Allah located? How does He look like? Things like this. The Quran gives us references here and there, but these are just glimpses. No one can claim that they have full access to Allah as such. That's why the idea of revelation or inspiration comes. Just to give us glimpses of this. Otherwise the Quran says, يَعْلَمُ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُم وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِهِ عِلْمًا. You can't really have a comprehensive understanding of God. So the Prophet ﷺ asks them, he said, أَوَقَدْ وَجَدْتُمُ? Have you really experienced this? They said, yes. Nah. We've experienced those dangerous thoughts. The Prophet ﷺ says in the response, ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. This is faith manifesting in its purest form. Why is that? These thoughts often come to someone who is busy with Allah, who keeps thinking about Allah. Otherwise, if you're not bothered about the whole thing, I don't care. But because you're busy with it, you've reached this point where you ask, how was Allah created? Or any other similar question. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ recognized this. He acknowledged this. He says, you think this goes against your faith in Allah? It's actually the complete opposite. ذَاكَ صَرِيحُ الْإِيمَانِ. Memorize this statement. Actually, that is faith manifesting in its clearest form. Right? And yet, before the Prophet ﷺ cultivates and establishes this culture, you have people who really would frown upon thoughts like these. And they would often take those, the Prophet ﷺ is using the same word they have used. مَا وَسْوَسَتْ بِهِ صُدُورُهَا. You consider these as whispers of the shaitan? ما لم تعمل به أو تتكلم, as long as you don't really act upon this by way of denying Allah مثلا. Or that you call people to deny Allah or something along those lines. So this hadith was said in a very particular context. Of course, how did you gather this? How did we gather this? It's literally from other hadiths that are there across other collections of hadith. That say that those hadiths basically indicate that there was a time when the Prophet ﷺ had those group of people come and ask him using the same words, and this is literally narrated in various collections of hadith. Why is it important then to really clean our thoughts? Because it's something that is so foundational to the Quran. You can't have a correct and a pure faith without having good, clear thoughts. Thoughts are very important. Otherwise, if I'm telling you, this person, is doing a great job. He does this, he does that, but his intention is not that great. How would you look at this person? You look down on them. That's how seriously we ourselves take intentions, we take thoughts. So thoughts, intentions are very, central things in the Quran and the Sunnah as well. In our, not just in our tradition, in the wisdom tradition in general, even pre-Islamic wisdom, they would often say the ancients, whenever they wanted to really fix their own states, whenever they wanted to put the states in proper order, what they would do first, before that, they would regulate the families. Because countries, states are formed of families. And before they regulated the families, they cultivated their own selves. And before they cultivated their own selves, they perfected their own souls. And before they perfected their own souls, what did they do? They actually tried to have sincere thoughts. You can't have a perfect soul without, trying to have a sincere thought. And before trying to have sincere thoughts, they actually pursued knowledge of things as they are. What does that mean? That is to indicate that knowledge always comes first. You can't have a sincere thought without knowing what makes my thoughts sincere. What makes me a good person? Knowledge. In Al-Ghazali, we've had this discussion before. The first hurdle, the first barrier between us and Allah, the first one, he says, aqabatul ilm, the hurdle of knowledge, or the barrier of knowledge. You can't reach without knowledge. Full stop. So you can't have sincere thoughts without attempting knowledge of things as they really are. When we say things as they really are, we mean, to really know that the big things are big and that small things are small, to just put everything in perspective, in its right place. Otherwise, when you don't have this, you don't know what am I doing? What the value of this, what the value of that. You just acting haphazardly. Once they got to know things as they really are, they started to have sincere thoughts. And when they had sincere thoughts, their souls became perfect. When their souls became perfect, their own selves became cultivated. When their own selves became cultivated, their families were regulated. When the families were regulated, the entire state was put in proper order. That's how serious a bad thought is. It's literally at the foundational level. So if the foundational level is stuck and corrupt, you can't hope to have a good fruit. So this hadith was said in a very particular context. And we need first to really have a look at the Quran. It's difficult. It's not easy to have a good thought. To always have a good thought. That's not an easy thing. The Quran identifies the people who have that concept as Rabbaniyun. Someone who has Allah at the center of their life. Okay, what drives bad thoughts or evil intentions? It's simply when you have something that is centered in your life apart from Allah. Rabbani, it literally means someone who is ascribed to Allah, who belongs to Allah, who has Allah, who have Allah at the center of their lives. It's not the ego, it's not other people, it's not the shaitan. Actually, the opposite of Rabbaniyun is shaitaniyun or nafsiyun, someone who has his own self at the center of the life, or has the shaitan at the center of the life, not Allah. If you have Allah at the center of your life, it will be much easier for you to have good thoughts. Why? Because before you respond to anything, you will ask yourself, is that pleasing to Allah? Why am I saying this? Why am I saying that? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Very simple. You have no one to please but Him. Why would I have evil thoughts? But if you have your own ego at the center, or the shaitan at the center, what happens is, you start to develop evil thoughts. Why did this person say this? Why did he say that? Why did he do that? Why did he do that? I mean, a long journey. It's like literally an unending one. And with those people, they really live an easy life. As in, it's very clear to them. With those people, they really struggle. They literally struggle on a minutely basis, not just on a daily basis. Because they have Al-Mutanabbi, if I remember correctly, had an interesting verse of poetry where he says, no, it's not Mutanabbi Asif, it's Muhammad Iqbal, the famous Pakistani philosopher. It says, وَالسُّجُودُ الذي تجتويه من ألوف السجود فيه النجاة والسجود الذي تجتويه من ألوف السجود فيه النجاة. Like a sujood that is used, the fact that you submit to Allah alone, that you bow down on the floor. We're not even allowed to do this to anyone else but Allah, which is literally the clearest form of submission to Allah. We see our forehead as the most honorable part of us, and you're saying, I'm putting this down to Allah. We do this, we do it. No one else but Allah. And he says, وَالسُّجُودُ الَّذِي تَجْتَوِيهِ, the sujood that you are really struggling with, because it shows you full submission to Allah. It actually saves you from thousands, other thousand forms of submissions. Because you are absolutely dedicated to one. If you're not dedicated to one, you have the shaitan, you have your ego, you have people, you have this, you have that, it's endless. You are always submitted to someone else but Him. So actually, by directing yourself to Him, you become hur as well. You liberate yourself. And in this way, no one can really enslave you. Otherwise, if you're not submitting properly to Him, you can easily be enslaved. Easily. So, the idea of having a clear thought, a sincere thought, a good thought is not an easy one. Yes, I mean, it gives you an easy life, yes, but it's not an easy practice. But it makes you honest with yourself. Why did I think evil of this person? Why did I think bad about that person? Why did I do this action? Why did I think ill of Allah? Allah has been by my side. We often we underestimate this. We often have evil assumptions about Allah Himself. In the sense that if Allah has been supporting us for ages, and we are always afraid of the future, what the future holds for us. Why did you think that? Don't you have a Lord that you know for a fact He's supporting you, He's by your side? That's how the Quran supported the Prophet ﷺ when he was a time of weakness. When it said to him, مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَقَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Allah has never left you alone in the past. Why should you think He will leave you in the future? Or in the now? Right? He has been preparing you for this moment for 40 years. Why would He leave you now? So what is happening to you now is happening for a good reason. Just be awake and be alert to this. So we have evil thoughts of Allah to begin with, because of our worries. That's why the shaitan that's his playground with us. إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءَ. The shaitan plays with us with those fears. Al-khawf wal-qalaq. Making use of our own disposition. إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ خُلِقَ هَلُوعًا. That's why we become so easily excited and ignited. Incited, sorry. So it's not an easy practice. It makes you sincere with yourself. It makes you question everything that you do. Why am I having this thought? If it's justified, you fine. If it's unjustified, you really have to work on it. Of course, a believer is not meant to be a stupid person. If you are in a situation where you have a lot of hints and a lot of red flags, toxic relations, unfulfilling job, or whatever. In that context, you might not, it's not an evil thought. I mean, you are being real, right? Take these things seriously, but it takes ages to reach that level. So when in doubt, always go back to having sincere thoughts, or having good thoughts, or having good thoughts. Keep away from evil thoughts. And I think it's evil thoughts are very dangerous with our so common with our relationship with Allah, so common with our relationship with each other. So really, really very common. You say something that is ambiguous, could mean a good thing, could mean a bad thing. Why do I naturally jump to the bad interpretation when there is a good one? They always say, there is what you say, your statement. My response to your statement is not based on your statement, it's based on my interpretation of your statement. You've chosen to interpret this statement or this action in a very specific way. That's why I ended up being angry, being happy, So it is your thought in the first place that either made you happy or made you unhappy. It's your interpretation, not really the action of that person, or not really his statement. So interpretation is a very serious thing. And you have either an evil thought or a good thought on the basis of your interpretation. So you're giving yourself a good help just because of how you interpret things. Yes, yeah. Sure. Just because you were a guest tonight, otherwise we don't. Of course, there are neutral thoughts. You meet a new person in your life, you know nothing about them. I have no thoughts. I have no expectations. So there are different, if we can really maintain those neutral states, we're fine. We don't. I mean, actually, we try as much as possible to literally transform this neutrality into either positivity or negativity, maybe in the first meeting that we have. I just want to get you boxed properly with this or that. We hate and gray areas as a very human thing. So having the last point I was making is it's the good thing about having good thoughts or struggling to have a good thought is it simply gives you a sense of accountability before everything that you say, everything that you do, why am I doing this? Why am I having this bad thought? Could I have thought of it in another way? These are serious things. A good person is honest with themselves in the first place. They analyze their own selves. They don't act like animals. The Quran actually trying to keep us away from this. For someone who's not bothered about the whole thing, who doesn't take this tradition very seriously, what happens is just act at first impulses. That's actually what they call them. They act at the first impulses. This is the first thing they think and they act upon it. They don't even pause. I'm not saying this is easy. It's not easy to really reform one's thought. That's our journey, maybe daily journey. How do I just take control and let those good aspects, overcome the bad ones? That's a daily struggle. But it's literally very liberating. Are we clear on that? Or do the idea of sort of and having bad thoughts and that? Okay. Inshallah, we move then to where we stopped last time of Surah Maryam. Verse number 34. ذلك عيسى بن مريم. We read until verse number 40. قضي الأرض. What does it feel like at that? We need a dot. Relax it a little bit and it will come out clearly. Al-Arda. Arda. Yes, that's much good. أيوة. Well done, well done. ذلك عيسى بن مريم.
ذلك عيسى بن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون
Well done. سيد حافظ.
ذلك عيسى بن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون.
Well done. Well done. سيد عبد الله.
ذلك عيسى بن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا
صراط مستقيم. ما كان فيه إدغام. صراط مستقيم. من بينهم. Last week we had a discussion on نون الساكنة والتنوين. So this is what is this? من بينهم. إقلاب. نعم. The noon has been turned into a meme. نعم.
وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين
وأنذرهم. What is this one? What is this حكم؟ إخفاء. ما شاء الله. You weren't with us though. ما شاء الله. ما شاء الله. I have other sources of knowledge. ما شاء الله. ما شاء الله. ما شاء الله. Very good. Very good. أحمد.
ذلك عيسى بن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد.
What is the حكم هنا؟ أن يتخذ من ولد. What was it from last week? أن يتخذ. إدغام. نعم. والثاني أيضا إدغام. من ولد. Noon is followed by a well. نعم. من ولد. سبحانه.
إذا قضى فإنما يقول له كن فيكون
وإن.
الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا
من مشهد.
يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون.
ولدان يا أحمد. three Ahmeds or so.
In a row.
صحيح. نعم. الله يسعدك أحمد عوض.
ذلك عيسى ابن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون.
الله يطالك عمر.
ذلك عيسى ابن مريم قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون ما كان لله أن يتخذ منه ولدا سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر وهم في غفلة وهم لا يؤمنون إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون.
الله يطالك ما شاء الله. Very good. The sister's side. إذا قضى Well done, Yelin. Well done. Other reciters? أن يتخذ للذين حسرتي الأرض ومن عليها يرجعون. Excellent, mashallah. Other reciters? Okay. ذلك عيسى بن مريم. Such was Isa ibn Maryam. قول الحق الذي فيه يمترون. This is a statement of truth in which they should have no doubt. Even though they have the truth about what they have doubt of. ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد. It is not really befitting for Allah to take a son. Subhanahu is far above this. إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. Why would he want a son? When he wants something, he just says be and it becomes. So when what happens, why you need to ask the question of why do people want children? They want children because they are needy. As humans, we are needy. We need so many things. One of those needs is the feeling that you are not alone. You have family. You have this. You have that. Allah is in no need of all this. He can fulfill his. First of all, He doesn't have needs, and if He has needs, He can fulfill them immediately. Right? So إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. With us humans, we can't do this. For you to have a sense of family, you have to have a family. You need to get married and wait for certain years for you. That's how it goes. For him, no, it's not like that. وإن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه. And Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so worship Him. This is a straight path. فاختلف الأحزاب من بينهم. But the parties differed after amongst them. فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم. What suffering, awaits those people, those parties, when they get to see a very dreadful day. أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا. Look at them, the way the day they meet us, the day they come to see us. لكن الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين. But those wrongdoers today are completely blinded, completely blind. وأنذرهم يوم الحسرة إذ قضي الأمر, and warn them of the day of regret or remorse, when things have been cleared up, there is no, things have come to conclusions. وهم في غفلة, and yet they are heedless, having no faith. إنا نحن نرث الأرض ومن عليها وإلينا يرجعون. It all goes back to us. We will inherit, we are the ones who will inherit the earth, and we are the ones to whom they shall go back. We'll have 1 or 2 minutes for reflection, and then inshallah we share our thoughts, our good thoughts. The famous tradition that says, take 70 excuses for your friend if he doesn't fulfill something, doesn't commit to something. And you need to think of 70 excuses. I had a friend who once said to me, I reached 69, so be careful. So, try and maximize it. The names of Allah is Al-Qabid Al-Basit. Al-Qabid is the one who expands things. And Al-Basit is the one who expands things. Expansion. And Al-Qabid الذي يقبض, he restricts things, he restrains things. So sometimes we feel that our hearts and our souls are very expansive. Expansive, not expensive. And sometimes it's very, when anyone says something to you, it's like a balloon. You touch it, keep away from me. So, exactly. Always remember Allah's name, Al-Wasit. And Allah ibsit qalbi, wabsit nafsi. Interestingly enough, we have one organ, our body, that really reflects those names. What is it? It's the heart. It expands and it restrains. Expands, restrains. On a secondary basis. And if you think of this, Al-Qabid Al-Basit. يقبض قلبك ثم يبسطه. يقبض ثم يبسط. يقبض ثم يبسط. It's a really interesting thing to think of here. Having an expansive soul is a good thing. And I'm sure in our lives we have people who are like that, like people who are really happy most of the time. They are optimistic, they have good thoughts, they have this, they have that. And you have others who are always on the pessimistic side of things. I can't get a job, I'm really horrible. And even if I get a job, it wouldn't be that fulfilling. Even if it's fulfilling, it's enough in terms of money. Always there are things missing. Okay. So, if you have any thoughts, anything you want to share with us on this passage, something that really strikes you, puzzling, whatever you have in mind, something that you really reacted to, no matter what the reaction is. Yes, yeah.
I wonder if this is a little bit the right place. ولكن أسمع بالمؤبسة you mentioned quite recently, but it's something about it's not kind of an exaggeration of how well one can see or hear, right? When does Islam or just
It could mean, so that's a good point. Do you want to finish your thought before I comment on this?
the idea is يوم يأتون as in they come to us. But then I found it interesting the use of lakin. That it's almost however, they've come to us, which is normally I think a positive thing that we've gone to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is going to be the goal at this time. But then lakin الظالمون اليوم في ضلال مبين, it's like it's saying, but unfortunately for those people, even though they've come to us today, they've been led astray. For the idea of lakin, I think I'm just trying to really understand why. Lakin, what is it kind of changing from before?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting observation. First of all, it can be translated as, I said, look at them. Maybe the day they meet us, they will get to see things as they really are. Like the Quran says in Surah Al-Qaf, فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ. Your sight is very sharp when you die. وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ وَالْحَقُّ. لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا فكشفنا عنك غطاءك فبصرك اليوم حديد. You were heedless. The concept of heedlessness is mentioned in this verse. لقد كنت في غفلة من هذا. You were in heedlessness. فكشفنا عنك غطاءك. Now we've taken this blanket, the screen. فبصرك اليوم. And now your eyesight is so sharp. Now you know the real value of things. Right? That's the way I would see it. So why does it say, of course you can understand it in this way as well, in a different way, by saying أسمع بهم أبصر يوم يأتوننا. So it can be seen in the way I said it earlier, like look at them the day they come to, like how alert they would be. It can also be translated as, it's very close anyway. أسمع بهم وأبصر يوم يأتوننا. How clear would the sight be the day they meet us? How clear the hearing would be, even though today they are heedless. If that makes sense.
They have clear eyesight, but
the day they will meet us, they will be the hearing would be so clear, the sighting would be so clear, even though today they are blind.
as in almost the day of when Allah speaks to the Prophet.
Yeah, of course, the day of this world. No, بالضبط. يوم القيامة. Oh no. Really? Interesting. لكن Oh, I see. Interesting. لكن الظالمون اليوم. No, it can't be. It can't be.
Because of Dalal Mubin. You can't be in Dalal Mubin.
No, because normally if I'm saying لكن الظالمون اليوم, if I say أجيئك اليوم, it means today. You wouldn't want to ask me if it's Saturday, if it's next week, because when I say اليوم, it means today. But today, normally when the Quran says اليوم, it's a unless if there is a context. For example, يعني لو قلنا مثلا اليوم, that's a good example actually. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. It means today I have perfected your deen. But it can also فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا. بس فذلك اليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا. Because the context says يوم القيامة. But in this verse, for some reason I don't think it can be even.
It's just because we're used to this word.
Okay.
In the Quran is
يوم القيامة. Okay. I see. And maybe the meaning as well is helpful in that sense. Like to me, it's very clear this way. But today they are blinded, even though it's a very clear matter. Wallahu alam. Yeah. Other thoughts now.
I just wanted to say how impressive, as always, the eloquence of the Quran, as in 7 lines exactly. It presents the claim, he debunks the claim, and then says what's going to happen to these people, and then goes back to who remains, which is Allah.
Allah.
It's so beautiful.
Absolutely.
Literally 6-7 lines, the whole story, presenting the claim of whoever says, "Inna Allah lahu walad,"
No.
and then debunks it. ما كان لله أن يتخذ من ولد سبحانه إذا قضى أمرا فإنما يقول له كن فيكون. And then what's going to happen to them? فويل للذين كفروا من مشهد يوم عظيم.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the Quran. That's the Quran.
You can't say a story. To be able to say a story like this,
Yeah.
debunk it and say
Exactly.
what happened.
Exactly.
We need a couple at least.
That's true. Was it Al-Muqaffa who attempted, who said that I really can get you a chapter like those of the Quran? And he happened to have a look at the beginning of Surah Al-Ma'idah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا أوفوا بالعقود وحلت لكم بهيمة الأنعام إلا ما يتلى عليكم غير محل الصيد وأنتم حرم إن الله يحكم ما يريد. In just 2 lines, he came back and said, no way. In just 2 lines, I found that an expression of prohibition, an expression of permissibility, and Allah invoking the believers with an istithna, exempting, إلا ما يتلى غير محل, and then an exemption of the exemption. And all this is happening and then a description of Allah. All this is happening in 2 lines, and it's giving meaning. And I can do the same, but yeah, meaninglessly. But that's subhanallah. Yeah, definitely. كتاب أحكمت آياته ثم فصلت من لدن حكيم خبير. Allah says, I have perfected this. أحكمت آياته. Absolutely. That's what Allah says, لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا. If this was revealed to rocks, they would have submitted. Well, we don't easily submit. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu used to say, in a commentary also, and verse in Surah Al-Hadid, أَلَمْ يَأْنِ لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَن تَخْشَعَ قُلُوبُهُمْ لِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ. Isn't it time for those who have faith to really submit to Allah? وَلَا يَكُونُوا كَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابَ مِنْ قَبْلُ فَطَالَ عَلَيْهِمُ الْأَمَدُ فَقَسَتْ قُلُوبُهُم. And not be like the people who were before them. When it took much time, the hearts were hardened. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud used to say, ما كان بين إسلامنا وبين نزول هذه الآية إلا 4 سنوات. It was only a span of 4 years between the revelation of this verse to the Prophet ﷺ and our Islam. And by the way, we have 14 centuries between the revelation of this Quran and us today. So it's how fresh were the hearts when the Quran was being revealed, and and that is really interesting. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he once had some Bedouins who came to see him. When I think he was the caliph by then, and this was the first time ever they listened to the Quran. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu said to them about them. He saw them crying. First time they recite the Quran, literally crying. Abu Bakr said, هكذا كنا, we were like that. ثم قست القلوب. But then our hearts became hardened after that. So that's something that touches. That's the beauty of the Quran. And because we often take it for granted, we don't reflect much, we don't do tadabbur. At some point we're talking about tadabbur. Tadabbur is a very heavy concept, it's a very dense concept. We don't even reflect on what it means. I think in some occasion I was talking about what tadabbur means linguistically. Tadabbur comes from dabara, and we have the word dubur in Arabic, the back of something. So when you do tadabbur, you're really trying to look, sometimes you look at the face of something. But often we, think of it this way. You want to buy something. You're trying to buy something. What do? You try and, turn it around to see, often actually people would put things to make the face very clean, very sharp, and very clear. But you have to really dig deeper for you to see what is inside. That's how seriously we take things. But when it comes to the Quran, we're always happy with just, the surface level. The surface level. But to look at the back, the Quran says, tadabbur, look at the back of this. قلب النظر, and reflect, and try this side, try that side, maximize what you can get out of me. We're just happy with the surface level. So, indeed, thank you so much. Other thoughts? No. No. Absolutely. No. الله يفتح عليك. اللام تشير للبعيد and also تشير للجمع. It refers to a multiplicity of attributes that Isa alayhi salam had. إني عبد الله آتاني الكتاب جعلني نبيا جعلني مباركا أينما كنت أوصاني بالصلاة والزكاة ما دمت حيا برا بوالدتي ولم يجعلني. So ذلك refers to all this. Indeed. I'm struck by the verse. Yeah. To the Masjid. Yeah, sure. Please, you may put them here if you wish. Oh, it's fine, yeah. Thank you so much. Maybe here, yeah, the basement. I am struck by the verse, فَاخْتَلَفَ الْأَحْزَابُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ. It is talking about the people who had different views about Isa alayhi salam. For anyone who knows about the Christian tradition, especially in the first generations, in the first centuries, until Constantine accepted or embraced Christianity and became a state religion, they had some deep debates about the nature of Jesus Christ, Isa alayhi salam, whether he was a human. There were groups who said he was a human. From amongst the Christians themselves, a famous group called the Ebionites, they believed he was a human. And it's known actually today in Christian studies as Jewish Christianity. They believe that Jesus was a human and that we are asked two things: to basically follow the Jewish law, in the sense that Christianity did not really cancel Judaism, that we are asked to go by the Jewish law and the morals of Isa alayhi salam. So the legal aspect of the Jewish tradition and the moral aspect of the Christian tradition. So combining both traditions, that's why it's called Jewish Christianity. And there was another group that is called what we know today as Western Christianity, so to speak, or Pauline Christianity, attributed to Paul the Apostle. What I'm trying to say is they really deeply differ. Was he a human? Was he divine? Was he both? Was he born a human, but then Allah adopted him as a son after that? I mean, deep disagreements. And even up until today, these are very deep ones. And within the Christians themselves, up to this moment, there is disagreement. There are disagreements. You have Unitarians who believe that God is one and that Jesus was just a human. You have so many views up to this very moment. And I think since the rise of Islam, and it's a critique of those aspects of the Christian tradition, I think it caused a sense of revisitation to those concepts. I mean, today I know so many Christians who believe that Jesus was more of a prophet than being a God or being divine or something. I mean, maybe we can discuss this at some other point. Like, why did they look at Jesus this way? That's a very important discussion to be had. But What strikes me about this verse, though, is the Quran is not frowning upon the idea of ikhtilaf, having differences, but is frowning upon the idea of al-ahzab, factionalism, having factions, having parties, so to speak. When you have parties, what happens? You stop thinking. That party spirit takes the lead. What you're doing is literally you are just trying to confirm whatever your party is saying. You're not really pursuing the truth as such. That's what the Quran says, قول الحق. That's the truth of the matter. It should not be a rocket science. So the idea of that sort of partisanship, so to speak, or having parties as such, it somehow blocks your sincere and innocent and clear pursuit of truth. Otherwise, ikhtilaf per se is a very healthy thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Hud, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا. If Allah had willed, He would have made all people like one. Then thinking of the same way, and that's it. But He says, وَلَا يَزَالُونَ مُخْتَلِفِينَ. And they will always be in a state of difference. إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُ. Except for those to whom or upon whom that Allah had showed mercy. وَلِذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُ. And because of that, He created them. Because of what? You know what? The most dominant interpretation says because of ikhtilaf. Because of that difference, Allah had created them. One of the key, many scholars would say, one of the key reasons behind our creation is that there's no difference per se, but rather what comes out of this difference. Okay, and this is very important. Sometimes, especially when we as humans, we live with, you can't live without the community. You live with communities. And community comes from two words, come and unity. Like you come together and you unify. Community, right? So unity is a big thing for communities. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that unity, if it's not based on, unity is one of those concepts that can be easily abused and misused. Allah is telling us that at times, Allah doesn't want it. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَا كَانَ اللَّهُ لِيَذَرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ عَلَى مَا أَنْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ حَتَّى يَمِيزَ الْخَبِيثَ مِنَ الطَّيِّبِ. Allah wouldn't leave you like that until He really distinguishes the good ones from the bad ones. Right? That's a very serious thing. Like it's one of Allah's objectives for us is that He does not leave us like the good ones and the bad ones. You don't know what defines me, my good person, my bad person. The same meaning gets repeated in Surah Al-Anfal. إن الذين كفروا ينفقون أموالهم ليصدوا عن سبيل الله فسينفقونها ثم تكون عليهم حسرة ثم يغلبون والذين كفروا إلى جهنم يحشرون ليميز الله الخبيث من الطيب. All this would happen for Allah to really distinguish the good ones from the bad ones. So that concept should not be, it should have qualifications to it. Because sometimes unity comes at the high cost, at the cost of integrity, the cost of honesty, the cost of authenticity. These are very high prices. If this is the price you're paying for unity, then you really have lost out. Right? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by the end of Surah Hud is saying, وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ لَجَعَلَ النَّاسَ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. If Allah had wished, He would have made all people alike. But if this is the way, there would have been no difference between humans. Like, they need to be tested for Allah to have those, good ones who come to Allah voluntarily. وَلَذَلِكَ خَلَقَهُمْ so that we end up with this group. يعني خلقهم so that we end up with a good group of people from anywhere in the world. Allah's one of His key objectives, according to the Quran, is that He gets to purify this group, no matter where they are. So He made people, He gave people freedom, He gave people this, He gave people that. إِلَّا مَنْ رَحِمَ رَبُّكَ. So the ones who had been shown mercy, by virtue of which they were with the right group. The group that Allah has created this whole thing for them. He wanted this group to be tested. After all those tests, they chose Him. So that's another aspect to idea of ikhtilaf. So sometimes it's a good thing for the good ones to be distinguished. Partisanship, having that sort of party spirit, literally blocks this sort of filtering. Because what it does is simply everyone belongs to a specific group, and that's it. What happens after that is just fanaticism and exclusivism and all negative concepts. So I'm really struck by the Quran's usage of the term al-ahzab. It is not the people. The Quran is not saying فَاخْتَلَفَ النَّاسُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ. People differed after that. No, I don't think this is the case. It's فَاخْتَلَفَ الْأَحْزَابُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ. It's those parties. And then what happens after you choose a party, you just defend. That's a very serious thing. The Quran is not interested. Allah is not interested in a unity that comes through dishonesty. Allah is not interested in a unity that compromises integrity. Allah is not interested in a unity that really compromises authenticity. Actually, one of the key accusations that the Meccans had against the Prophet ﷺ, what did they say? إِنَّهُ يُفَرِّقُ بَيْنَ الرَّجُلِ وَأَهْلِهِ وَبَيْنَ الْأَخِ وَأَخِيهِ. He actually divides people. Right? The Prophet is being accused of causing division. So you might read Islam in this line as well. Because Allah is not interested, again, Allah is interested in a unity that comes at the price of integrity, at the price of honesty. These are big things that the Quran is. So فَاخْتَلَفَ الْأَحْزَابُ مِنْ بَيْنِهِمْ. When you have those parties, that party spirit, things get lost. And that's why, the Quran is always interested in unity, the unity of the hearts, not the unity of the minds. The Quran never spoke of people being united, or even invited people to think in the same way. As in, imposing a specific way of, you see what I mean? But it is deeply interested in unifying people's hearts. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Do not divide. Hold on to Allah's rope, that is the Quran. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذْ كُنْتُمْ أَعْدَاءً. Remember Allah's blessing upon you when you were enemies to each other. فَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ. He united your hearts, not your minds. Because today, in the Muslim world, what is happening is you have people who are trying to unite people's minds. You need to think about Allah in this way. This is the way we should understand the nature of Allah. You can't understand this Quranic verse in this way. You can't understand this Quranic in that way. Who are you to tell me? We all pursue it. We're all trying to seek knowledge. We're trying to do our best. So this happens when you when you lose sight of who you really are. Because if we have hearts that are united, we'll easily have conversations. we would actually easily entertain the deepest disagreements. The deepest intellectual disagreements, you can easily entertain them as long as you have unified hearts. But when you don't have that unified heart, what happens? The moment I disagree with you intellectually, the moment you question my authenticity, you question my honesty, this guy is a kafir, this guy is a mubtadi'. Why did you reach that? It's an innocent intellectual disagreement. Why did you question my authenticity? Why did you question my honesty? That is something between me and Allah. Simply because we've really been looking for the wrong end. The Prophet ﷺ acknowledged this difference, intellectual difference. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to the Prophet ﷺ about this in Surah Al-Anfal, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ, and He unified the hearts, not the minds. I mean, minds can easily get unified. Anyway, as in, when the hearts are unified, people at least will be able to see the vision. When you see the vision, you will happily compromise the things that need to be compromised. You'll be able to see the essence, the essential things. But when people are disunited in hearts, small things become big, and they just lose sight of things. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet, لو ألفت بيننا لو أنفقت ما في الأرض جميعا ما ألفت بيننا. Allah is telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that uniting the companions' hearts is a miracle. That Allah, He says, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ, I helped you unify the hearts. If it was you on your own, if you spend everything that you have on earth, you wouldn't have been able to really unify the hearts. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ. Allah has supported you by unifying the hearts. So what we really should be after in today's Muslim world, and amongst ourselves, is working on this. Working on the unity of the hearts and the unity of the mind is a very healthy thing. The difference of the mind is actually a very healthy thing. When you keep looking at things differently, we really enrich each other's understanding of things. We should never frown upon this. Actually, if you frown upon this, that means you frown upon one of Allah's objectives. If Allah is saying, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَا مِنْكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمِنْهَاجًا, I have made a path for each of you. وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ جَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً. If Allah had willed, He made you one nation, thinking of the one single way. وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ فِيمَا آتَاكُم. But He wanted to test you, whether to see what you'll be doing with this. فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. The most important thing is that you really, having good intentions, having good visions. What are you racing for? What are you vying over? إِلَى اللَّهِ مَرْجِعُكُمْ جَمِيعًا. He is the one who will judge. You're not the one who judges. But alhamdulillah, Allah is the one who judges with us. فَيُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. I was just reciting the verse in Surah Al-Hajj, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَالَّذِينَ هَادُوا وَالصَّابِينَ وَالنَّصَارَى وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَفْصِلُ بَيْنَهُم. Allah is the one who judges. Or you have just be a good example of someone who believes in Allah, someone who acts upon what He says and that. I'm happy to entertain one more thing. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? We have. Have you just come to Bath, or you've been here for? Okay. Can you give us like 5 minutes? I'll be with you. After 5 minutes, I'll be with you, if you don't mind. Yes, yeah. Apologies, Omar. Did you have any thoughts? Okay. Al-Ahzab. That's a good question. I don't think the Quran is talking of a specific, named group as such, but the Quran is speaking of a phenomena where, there are people who had that party spirit. We are, say, I don't know, whatever group you might have. Like with Muslims, you have the you have many names, many schools. The same thing with the Christian tradition. You have the Catholics, the Orthodox. You have this, you have that. Ebionites, Nazarenes. So many groups who, maybe the first one who introduced that school could be a very critical person, like as in intellectually critical person, but mostly those who follow, just follow blindly. So the Quran is critiquing that state of affairs, like when people just follow because they love the leader or something. There is no critical assessment of why am I doing this. Um,
إذا كانت يعني بشكل عام
sure, no problem.
في هذه الآية تعتبر بشكل عام ولا خصيصا بوقت سيدنا عيسى لما ذكر فرصة ووقت أيضا سيدنا عيسى لأن مثلا سؤالي جاي من فكرة مثلا مسيحية أحزاب قد تكون مثلا الذين يعتبرون سيدنا عيسى عليه السلام ابن الله وتذكرتم أيضا في اللي يعتقد أنه هو إله واللي أيضا بتاع أمنية سيدنا مريم
نعم.
وأيضا مع سيدنا عيسى فهذا هو سؤالي هل هم هذا أحزاب يعتبروا في القصة هذه
Oh yeah, sure. That's the thing. Those ahzabs were literally formed on those views. You have the view that the party that believed that Jesus was the Son of God, that Jesus was God, and then you have hundreds, perhaps thousands, who followed that path. That's a hizb. You have a hizb that believed in, no worries.
وسؤالي القرآن شنو هم الأحزاب ما هم الأحزاب التي ذكرت في القرآن بالنسبة للمسيحية الديانة المسيحية والشريعة المسيحية الدين في وقت سيدنا عيسى
الأحزاب
ليس بشرط الأحزاب الحرفية
Sure.
بل التفرقة التي صارت التي حدثت في الوقت
I think the context, the Quran never named groups with their names as such, but often speaks of phenomena, like an idea of ahzab just be people differing and building loyalties on the basis of those differences, of opinions. So if the discussion is to do with the nature of Jesus, as in this context, the ahzab would be the people who had different views on Jesus. If the word ahzab is mentioned somewhere else, I think it's mentioned also in Surah Al-Zukhruf. And in that context, I think it's almost the same discussion. ولما ضرب ابن مريم مثلا ذا قوم كانوا يصدون وقالوا آلهتنا خير أم هم ما ضربوه لك إلا جدلا بل هم قوم خصمون إن هو إلا عبد أنعمنا عليه وجعلناه هدى لبني إسرائيل. The same discussion, the people who really disagreed on the nature of Jesus, and it's almost the same concept. Al-Ahzab, in Surah Al-Ahzab, the city is referring to the disbelievers of Mecca uniting with some of the hypocrites from Munafiqun of Medina. So the context plays a role. So the idea of Al-Ahzab is just people partying blindly, so to speak. Does that make sense? Yeah. Ahmad, one final question.
Briefly, I guess also continuing on this point, the last ayah that we read in this passage, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَرِثُ الْأَرْضَ وَمَنْ عَلَيْهَا وَإِلَيْنَا يُرْجَعُونَ, like everyone, we inherit the earth and all who are on it, and they will be returned to us. It's the idea of like these people can have their factions and groups and stuff, but it's really Allah who has like the whole entirety of everyone, inherits everyone, has like the whole faction of everyone kind of belonging to him. So these factions, these small factions of theirs belonging in are really sort of not something great.
Absolutely, that's a really great thought to end with. The idea of giving authority to Allah and a sense of accountability to the people. By the end of the day, Allah is the judge, and there will be a day of judgment. It's called actually the day of judgment. Upon which, in a different context, the Quran, when it commented on that disagreement, as well by the end of Surah Al-Ma'idah, قال الله هذا يوم ينفع الصادقين صدقهم. This is the day in which one's honesty would matter, one's authenticity would matter, and that's the key criterion with which Allah distinguishes, the good ones from the bad ones. Those ahzab, because those ahzab are not all alike. Some of them were just followers. Those followers would have a punishment, but would be as severe as the punishment of the leaders of those. That's to Allah. We have no access to that. نَرِثُ الْأَرْضَ وَمَنْ عَلَيْهَا وَإِلَيْنَا يُرْجَعُونَ. Very interesting passage. Always gets interesting when we talk of different religions or different faith traditions. I wish we had time to talk more. I can happily talk about the discussions that early Christians had about the nature of Jesus Christ, and that perhaps in a different context or something. But inshallah, next week we move to the next episode, so to speak. That is Ibrahim alayhi salam.
مباركا أينما كنت وأوصاني